Okay, at 5:15 p.m., I'll call the meeting to order. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. The town of Lunenburg, in response to COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from Lunenburg Board of Health, Mass Department of Public Health, and CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. And all town facilities are open by appointment only in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. All public meetings are being conducted remotely. Okay. Before we get started, is there any public comment from the committee? No.
No.
And I don't see any public. I don't have any meetings for approval. So this leads us to review the FY22 capital plan projects. Heather, do you want to give us an update on what your recommendation was?
So after the last meeting, we got the revised estimates for the town hall and the Ritter building projects. And they came in not that much higher in the scheme of things for the town hall project, given that we have an old capital item for the chimney work, so that can go towards that project. But the Ritter building came in significantly more. Yep. So I had emailed the committee at that time because I talked to the architect about if we could phase it. And he suggested we could bid the whole project and put in alternates for work that made sense in the order that it was done. So the project cost in the capital plan for the recommendation right now is $120,000, which is right around what the committee had discussed. But I wanted the committee's recommendation as well, if more funds became available for capital, where to go first with those. Would we amend the Ritter building project or move on down the list of ranked projects? That makes sense.
So what would be the next item on our list that didn't make the cut?
So it was up to number 13.
Marshall Park.
Yeah, Marshall Park.
And 14 was.
I obviously would like that to make it in, but I also had a question about the Ritter. And one of the alternates, if I remember correctly, I don't have it in front of me, was selected roof work. Are we shooting ourselves in the foot by potentially not doing the roof work and potentially having leaks that causes damage inside the building? Seemed like roof is an important part of the envelope, higher than even fascia, and I understand about the fascia work. It really needs it.
Dave, you're talking about the Ritter building project?
Yeah, wasn't one of the alternates at one point listed as selected roof repair?
So that's because those are wooden gutters. That's where that woodwork for the roof would need to be. So if the gutters being connected to the roof, I think that's where the selective roof work would need to be.
Okay, but if you do the gutter work, you really need to do the roof work, or you're going to damage the integrity of the roof, I would think. I'm not sure, and I understand it's a complex set of circumstances there. It's not like having a aluminum gutter hanging off the side of a building. They're built right into the soffit. So,
Heather, do you know if they're putting back a similar? Is it going to look the same, or are they trying to modify it to put aluminum gutters on that? What does the cost entail? Cover?
Let me spend a little bit. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see, selected.
While she's looking that up, Damon, if you don't mind,
Oh,
I was going to ask this at some point along the way, either this meeting or Board of Selectmen's meeting, and that is, do we have fire detection in Town Hall that covers the entire building and notifies the fire department right away? I don't know if anybody picked it up in the news today. It took a little while to get down from New Hampshire, but the town of Jefferson, New Hampshire lost their town hall last evening. Built in 1874, burned to the ground.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
yeah, we do.
You know,
So the gutters, so to address the gutters, they would line with rubber, that's what typically is done with old projects with.
okay. So the repairing and modifying what's there, they're not just ripping it off. All right, okay. Just want to make sure it's being, obviously needs to get done, but I want to make sure it's getting done right and we don't do any more damage to the building.
To your question too, Damon, I think that, from the APDC's point of view, lining the gutter will probably maintain the look of the building without, ripping those out and changing it completely.
Yeah. So I guess back to Heather's question, if more money comes available, do we want to keep putting it into the Ritter, or I guess we would need 50,000 for the next Marshall Park line item, right?
Well, so the base bid, according to the spreadsheet that came out, is 91,500, unless I'm reading it incorrectly, right?
So
I'm assuming those are the top priority things that would be in the base bid.
yeah. So the Vertex estimate, what we last discussed was the 117,893 with their figures. What our architect that we use on a variety of projects. The base bid, just do, those aren't separated out, so I'll do it quick. 20, 21, 25, 90, 94, 95,000.
Where did you get 95? So, because I'm seeing the 16.5, the 4,500, the 4,000, the 66.5, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry.
So let me just do it again, because I'm coming up with 91.5.
It's been a long day. 80, 81.5.
Oh, 91.5 is what I keep coming up with. 16,500, 4,500, 4,000, 66,500. Right?
Oh, you're right. 91.5. Yes.
91.5. So, and in our estimate, my sheet is showing that we had 119,547 when we originally did it. So that dropped down to 118, you're saying, Heather, on your presentation?
No, on my presentation to 120.
Okay, okay. All right, so that's high if we go with just the base bid. Were you thinking to do the base bid and alternate one?
As
Which is
much as we can, what the
1,000?
project comes in at, that would be the approach. If we keep it at the 120.
Okay, okay, okay. All right, so your question is, do we put more money into the Ritter or do we move on to an additional project?
I mean, we're making progress on the Ritter, which is good, but there's a whole committee and a whole group of people who are waiting on the Marshall Park thing, who will be spinning their wheels for another year if we don't get them a project.
I agree.
I think if the money comes up, if it were me anyways, I'd do Marshall Park.
Me too.
I
Yes.
go.
As vice chair, I would agree with that. Vice chair of the Parks Committee. unless something really pressing comes up and, you know, it can always get shuffled around before town meeting.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think the records room was, when the prioritization was done at that last meeting, the records room was,
Now, see, that was something I was going to bring up, and Paula asked that question to actually answer a question that I had sent to her that we didn't connect on. Because I don't know how many members of this committee, how they remember that prioritization in that part of the list, the 12, 13, 14.
Yeah,
Because Heather, in your presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I believe it was, you had mentioned that the records room was next in line. And
it's not.
on our
It's not.
list, we never moved it from 19 or wherever it was on the list.
No, I have the records room at 16.
16, okay. I knew it was in the teens,
I have
the higher teens.
I have the public safety records, but I have Marshall Park before that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my. I had Marshall Park at 14.
Yep, me too.
okay.
And then I have the 3/4 ton pickup truck at 15,
Yep.
records room at 16, another police vehicle at 17, the tractor at 18, another vehicle at 19, and then the air conditioning at 20. Is that what everyone has? No, we moved a police vehicle up, didn't we? Damon, can you
We
go
moved.
through what you have from Marshall
Yes,
Park?
we moved. Yes, we
We
moved
moved
one
the
of the
police
vehicles
vehicle up. Yeah, we moved one of the police vehicles.
Air
Yeah.
conditioning was still at 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got rid of the senior center carpet because it was
Right.
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, so we had Marshall Park before the.
Okay. Yeah. So the records room was 17.
Yes, where I have it, 17.
Mhm. Yeah, that is I need to correct that on my slide. Okay, so the committee is in agreement that it would move down the list.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we moved to Marshall Park.
And I think that's why we spent the time to order everything,
Mhm.
so that if you were looking at it in this manner, that's where we found priority next.
So is that a motion, Paula? Does someone should second?
A motion to, if there more money becomes available, that Marshall Park would be next on the list.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks. All in favor in the order that I see you? Dave?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
Aye for myself. Right.
Damon, could I ask Heather a question? I may have already asked this question. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. But with the potential of, I believe it was somewhere in the vicinity of 80,000 being left over from the underground storage tank project, do you have a vision as to where that money's going to end up being reappropriated?
Back to the capital plan. So, but as any other capital article, we wait till a full closure of the project.
Yeah, I totally understand that,
Yeah,
because that money's really not available until the project's done.
there's still paving work to be done around the parking lot related to that project.
All right, Heather, is there anything else you need from us? A blessing of your new plan or anything?
Nope. I just wanted confirmation on that because we didn't know those updated figures at our last meeting, so.
Okay.
So we're all in agreement.
Great. Yep. Okay, so that brings us to discussion on fiscal policies related to capital planning and projects. I just have not been able to get a Thursday myself to meet with finance. I don't know if we want to delegate that to somebody else or.
Damon, if I may, we had I won't say lengthy, but we did have a conversation about it at actually the last 2 finance committee meetings.
Good.
And the gist from the committee is that they would like us to take a look at any policies that affect what we do for the budget, i.e. capital planning, and send a recommendation to them on those sections. And I think we can do that fairly easily in maybe one additional meeting. I'm not sure. I printed out from page 36 through 41 in the selectmen's fiscal policies earlier today. I haven't fully digested it, but I don't think we'd be making an awful lot of substantive changes in it, with the exception of the fact that we already talked about the dollar amount. And, at the time, we really hadn't thought it through, but instead of going with 50,000, we were talking 30,000. So I think we need to finish having that conversation as to the pros and cons of that number, and then take a look at the rest of the policy, which goes on to page 37 and 38, and then the next category is free cash. So that's really not in our realm. So there's more or less a page and 2/3 of policy under capital budget that we could review and suggest any changes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm more than happy to if that's what they want us to do.
And they have scheduled, I'm sorry to cut in on you. I just want to get one more thing in there. They have scheduled an agenda item for, believe it's April, to actually start looking at the overall fiscal policy with the plan of making a recommendation on the whole entire policy to the Board of Selectmen sometime in the spring. And our recommendation would be part of that.
So they can
process.
start.
The policy that you're referring to, Dave, is that online? Can I download that?
Yes, it's on the Board of Selectmen's page.
Okay, thank you.
Click on their policies, and then, like I said, there's a whole index, and it's actually numbered page 36, 7, and 8. But when you go to
Okay.
print it, you got to
Yeah.
do something like 40, 41, and
yeah.
42, something like that.
Okay,
Right. Yeah, so I guess we all want to review that and we can have another meeting at some point. You said FinCom's going to start their conversation April, Dave, or?
Yeah, that's the first time it's officially on the agenda because we've got budgetary hearings and all that kind of stuff going on previous to that. So we figure by April, we'll be done with the departmental reviews and all of that stuff, and have a little bit of a break before town meeting to have a little bit of time to work on it. And finance has actually been, I've been bringing it up for 2 years, and I finally pushed the issue a little bit harder and said, we really need to get this done.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
So just to bring you up to speed, we're just talking about the fiscal policies. And Dave was saying that the FinCom would like us to review all the policies which affect capital planning and make a recommendation. So it'd be pages, what 30, what pages did you say, Dave?
36, 7, and 8 in the selectmen's policies. Covers capital budget.
yeah, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot for us to change.
No, and that's what I said earlier. You know,
Yeah,
I didn't get a chance to digest the verbiage of the other paragraphs,
yeah.
but I really don't think there's much in there. It's more the dollar amount and any
Mhm.
ramifications that either Heather mentions that pushes us one way or the other or something like that.
Dave, if I can ask you those pages again,
Yep, 36, 7, and 8.
36 to 8, okay.
Yeah, it's the very
Thank you.
bottom of 36 and then 37 and half of 38, or
Okay.
2/3 of 38.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to the dollar amount, I know we need to raise it, but I don't want to raise it so high that it's become something that department can't absorb in their operating budget. Because all the departments aren't created equally, and some of them are going to have a harder time than others absorbing a big number.
Well, I mean, it really is just a matter of allocating the money. You know, it's not that the way it's structured now, if we were to raise it, it's not like we don't think those jobs should be done. It's just that I don't think they should go through the capital plan. They could go right to the town manager, and the town manager can allocate that so that in total, whatever the money that we're allocating now and the method that we're using now, that bottom line allocation would remain the same. It just wouldn't go through our approval. There's no need for us to evaluate something that's, let's just say, $20,000. The town manager could certainly approve that on his or her own.
Heather, do you see any particular pros and cons of the direction we've been talking about here?
Just the ones that have been brought up. I mean, absorbing certain things into the budget. If there's years that there's multiple requests in one department for items. For instance, when I discussed it with the police department, a lot of their capital projects going out would fall under that $30,000 threshold. So there'd be years, there'd be, you know, a bigger, a larger amount of funding needed within
Yeah,
the.
so and that's my concern. If you look at our number 2 priority, it's the bulletproof vest, which is 17.5, and they weren't able to absorb that in their budget. So by raising it to the 30,000, you know, where does that money come from? I understand the rationale behind it, but I also understand the concern of the departments.
Shouldn't we be updating the departmental budgets to be able to get back to a position where the departmental budgets could absorb those upgrades as they did in many cases in the past? It's like the turnout gear for the fire department. The reason they haven't been able to keep up with it is that the number allocated within their budget has never been increased. Or if it has, it hasn't been increased enough to follow the cost of the turnout gear. I think that's what I'm trying to get to happen, so that these projects don't continually end up in capital planning and the capital budget. Support the individual department budgets and put an increase factor in there that does take into consideration the constantly climbing cost of replacement of this gear on a rotating basis. Because if you continue to do a complete change through the capital budget, then whatever the lifespan, I think the vests are 5 years, we're going to see that back again in capital in 5 years. Turnout gear, I would guess, is going to be the same thing. Whereas before, I'm not sure about the vests, how you would handle that, doing it in smaller increments. But the turnout gear was in the past done in increments, but they just haven't been able to keep up with it because the dollar amount allocated for turnout gear was not increased with the dramatic increase in cost of that materials.
Yeah,
That's my thought process.
but then you think about the senior center.
Right.
Where are they going to get $30,000 out of their operating budget?
Well, but I think we're looking at, I mean, the change in policy to me, where do they get it now? Where does the capital planning committee get that money? It all comes from the same place. All I'm saying is that instead of it going through, if it's a maintenance thing like a rug that's $15,000, why should it come to the capital planning? Why for 1 year you allocate more money to the senior center and say we're going to update the rug that year? It's just, I think we're operating under the thing that, okay, everybody's operating budget basically stays the same every year after year. And I'm saying there's no need for that. You could say, without going through committee, hey, this year I'm giving more for a one-time purpose for this group or this department to take care of this. It's a streamlining thing to put more flexibility in the town manager's role and the finance department's role.
So Tom, I think your question at the beginning of this was right on, is where does the money come from for capital planning?
It's the leftover money.
Right.
Well, it's a combination though of raise and appropriate. I'm sorry, Heather would be the best one to answer that question.
So the operating budget, in my opinion, never uses free cash. That's the very last resort for your operating budget. Whereas the capital plan, that's one of the sources, as well as raise and appropriate and stabilization funds, borrowing, those other sources. So that's why it fluctuates over the years. We don't have a consistent free cash number every year, although we like to get more on track with something that's more predictable. So we'd be able to plan out our capital plan going forward better.
Well, we've also very recently just started using raise and appropriate. For the longest time, it was only free cash. That was the capital budget.
Yeah, and that was one of my recommendations in my presentation, is to look at a policy on a percentage of the capital plan that comes from tax revenue. So it's built into our operating budget that we're always going to spend a certain percent on capital. That way we don't get all these deferred projects going forward.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, and I guess that it's a point blank question, you know, if you look at something like the police department, the 17.5 for the bulletproof vest, and you look at the 20,000 for the Page Street design, would it have been feasible at the beginning of the budget cycle to just incorporate those two items into the budget rather than putting them on the capital plan?
No, my process, it wouldn't have been part of the target budget. It would have been above target requests, that as all the requests come in, they're evaluated then.
So what I'm hearing you say then is if we raise the ceiling on that $30,000, those items wouldn't be funded.
It's possible they wouldn't be. It wouldn't be a guarantee.
But you take the raise and appropriate money that's going towards capital, and you take those numbers out of it and you put them directly into the budget. One other comment that I learned 2 years ago at the MMA conference, talking with the finance committee, I believe, and I can't remember whether it was Stoneham or Stoughton, one of those two. They actually take a percentage of their free cash every year and put it back into the operating budget. And that's how they covered some of these smaller projects. And that money, once it's built back into the budget, then it's there for the next year also.
Yeah, but that's not really a reliable source of income.
Right.
Yeah, but it becomes part of the budget.
But not when you can count on it.
Because it was derived from raise and appropriate revenue,
It's
but
also
you just
not-
didn't use it.
It's not always though.
Okay.
So I'd like to maybe take the step back for one question for the committee. And that is, so what would, what would be the reason? I know I have my own reasons, but what would everybody's reasoning be to up the level that we would need to address through the capital planning committee or change any of the policies? What would be the reasoning behind why we would want to do that? And I guess from that point, that would be a good starting point for me, at least, to understand why we would address them to begin with.
Well, in my mind, the only reason to up the dollar amount and look at this differently is because $10,000 isn't the same thing that it used to be. So I'm just trying to modernize it. I'm not trying to completely blow up the capital planning procedure and start again. I'm just trying to modernize it a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else has a different motive.
I agree with that, but I also think that it causes the department heads to take a closer look at their projects and maybe bundle 2 or 3 small ones together, and fully vet each one of them and put it together as one project. It's like this committee talked about 2 years ago about wanting envelope projects to be brought forward. And it was known that they were going to be small dollar amounts. So they wanted it bundled together as a municipal buildings envelope project. That way, a lump sum amount was allocated, but the money was spread over multiple buildings in smaller amounts.
Mhm.
That's my vision.
So I came into this late, and based on what I'm hearing and what I'm hearing from the town manager and the way the budget currently works, I would not be in favor of raising the dollar amount. But interested to hear the rationale behind why you guys are interested in doing that.
Well, I'll add why I'm for it. For a little bit is for what Damon said. A lot of it is for a dual purpose. First of all, some of the things that we're looking at are just the cost of doing business in the department. I mean, can you have a police department without bulletproof vests? Is that real? Is that really a police department? I mean, maybe a 1950s police department, but it's not a police department. It's part of doing business as a department. Now, does it come up only periodically? Sure. So on those years that it comes up periodically, you bump up their line item for their budget that year. If you want to keep it separate so people don't know it's operating, but it's like a one-time capital thing, that's fine. It doesn't have to blow up anything, and it doesn't have to commit the town to anything that the capital plan doesn't already commit them to. Which leads to number 2, which is it's just a matter of streamlining. I mean, there are some things that we discuss, like, again, carpeting. If carpeting is a tripping hazard in a senior center, are we really going to say, no, we shouldn't do that? And this is prior. I mean, it should be within the town manager's purview and the DPW and the facilities director to come up with that at a number that says, hey, this is a must have anyway. And the dollar amount doesn't rise to having a committee look at it. It still would be, the money would be allocated in the same way from the same sources. It would just be not going through a committee, and it would be under the hands, anything under that threshold would be under the hands of the town manager and her financial team. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, well, a part of what we do here is just visibility for the members of the town. Not that we have a lot of viewers, but when we go to town meeting, they see the line items up there on the screen and where that money is going to. So you don't want that to disappear and get lost in the mix of things.
Well, I have a solution to that. I mean, if that's the issue, then you have things that are, here are all the capital items, and here are the things that were approved by the capital planning committee, but these are things that were under the threshold, but that were approved by the town manager. So you still show it to everybody, but it just streamlines the discussion. I mean, again, I throw it out there. I'm not like this. I'm not willing to die on this hill. I just think a policy shift of that nature makes things more streamlined to me. To have to discuss whether we're going to have police cruisers. We have police cruisers every year. So almost by definition, that shouldn't be part of the capital plan.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Wendy. Sorry.
No. And I'm just seeing this. It's just then another bucket we've got to present. And then again, then what are the criteria for town manager to approve? Is it an automatic approval? If they put forward, $12,000 for, rugs in the senior center or something like that, again, that for that entity is likely a capital item in that it's outside of its budget, but it's clearly necessary. But then we're putting back to town manager, okay, every department could say this is it. It's almost, to me, it's almost like double work in some ways. And I get what you're saying completely. I can see both sides of this.
Sure.
I just don't know if we're creating more work that we may or may not need to.
I think one of the questions also is, where is the line between care and maintenance and rejuvenation of an asset?
Right.
My biggest issue is the funding source. And from what I'm hearing from Heather is if we say, okay, this is not a capital expenditure, at that point, Heather, how would you go about incorporating it into the budget?
So after review of all the above target requests, go through my normal process. I meet with every department individually. They discuss their above target requests, what the need is, the justification, and then it's a prioritization and allocation of resources. I mean, obviously we have limited resources. So.
And
You'll
then
have to go through that.
but relatively, we've had much more resources in recent years than we ever have in the past. Because usually it was like $400,000 or something like that was a capital budget, and we would have blown it away with one project. So there was a lot less money dedicated towards this, and a lot more, people waiting on projects that sat around and waited for years to get things funded. So we've given ourselves a luxury where we can, town manager, go ahead and allocate the money where you want to, but that not a luxury we've always had, and maybe we don't always have that if the economy goes backwards. But
So what are your thoughts, Heather, on raising the ceiling?
I agree with the standpoint to modernize it. I mean, 10,000 does seem low. Maybe there's a happy medium between the 30,000, and so we can do it incrementally to see the effect. I'm trying to look forward at the future years and what we have for projects and what that would all add up to each year. And if we break out, if we're continuing down this path of bundling facility projects, because most of our capital requests are related to facilities, then maybe the budget can absorb it. But if we're not, we have a huge amount of requests under facilities that we can't absorb into the town budget.
As a rebuttal to that, a few years ago, there was a discussion about supplementing the facilities budget to take these small projects out of capital. That discussion was actually had, and I don't remember in what meeting. I think it was a couple of Board of Selectmen's meetings during a budget season. And that's what's driven me towards looking to get this number elevated. That discussion was already had to supplement, especially facilities, to stop letting these buildings fall apart and have it built directly into the operating budget to do like these envelope projects, these little envelope projects that will help maintain the integrity of the buildings, supplement those budgets so that we can do those on an annual basis and not wait for the capital budget to get them done and potentially wait 6 to 8 years and have a building that's damaged even more because we didn't do it incrementally.
Yeah, and the facilities budget has increased incrementally, just not to the extent that we could absorb a project like the Ritter Building project or the Town Hall project that are on this year's capital plans. I mean, that would eat up our entire budget for one building when we have 8 buildings.
Right. Well, at any rate, we've been asked to look at the selectmen's fiscal policies. So it sounds like we're gonna have another meeting anyways. We want to, I'll review those. And just think about what a number that's gonna make you happy, so we can talk about that at our next meeting. We'll rehash that and go from there. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to be kind of trying to flush out in my mind between now and that next meeting, an incremental increase in this ceiling. And right at the moment, and I have not thought this through at all. So, I don't have it set in stone in my mind, but I'm thinking that maybe we would agree to the first change, whether hoping that it'd be in 2022's budget or 2023 at the latest, increase it to 20,000, with the also stating that within 2 years it would be increasing to, or the capital planning committee would be recommending that it increase to 30,000. That would give us a couple of years to look at the effect and not set that 30,000 in stone for a couple of years. That's my thought process, but I don't want to make any kind of motion on that tonight.
Anyone else have any other thoughts on the topic, or we'll tackle it next time?
Tackle it next time.
Do we have, want to set a date? When, calendar. How far out do we want to go?
Well, we know that this is coming onto the agenda mid-April for FinCom, you said, Dave?
Yes. It might be early April, actually. So I was just looking up at my calendar. So if we could do it sometime in the middle of March, I think would be appropriate.
So say like 6 weeks out, maybe from now, 5, 6.
I think we might need more than one meeting, but that's just me.
Good point. Do we want to do one in a month and then we give ourselves a little time?
Yeah.
That
Sure.
makes sense. Sure.
That's good with me.
Sure. So March 2nd, pencil it in.
Sounds good.
I'm stuck in front of this seat, in front of this camera every single day, so they're all the same to me.
Oh, geez. All right. We'll put it for then.
That way too, if there's any additional news on revenues that affect the capital plan, then we can have that as an agenda item to just any new news, I guess, would be the agenda item on capital planning.
Okay.
Update from the town manager.
Yeah, and then update. All right. So before we close, I still don't see any public comment. Any public comment from the committee?
I'm good.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor? Dave,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
I for myself. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you March 2nd.
Go Tom
night.
Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
See you at
Have a good
7,
night.
Tom.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks.
Night, everybody.